It's a big world out there, becoming more and more technically oriented every day. We all need help understanding and knowing how to work with ever-evolving computers, cell phones, and electronic devices. Stay tuned and you'll find out from local experts as KAZM presents Tech Talk. And now, Tech Talk.
Welcome into the program. Tom Taback here, along with Bob Coates from Bob Coates Photography.
Good morning, Tom.
I thought you were going to say Vietnam.
I know.
All right, what are we going to talk about today?
Let's talk about some art. I've got, I'm the Artist of the Month over at the Gallery of Modern Masters. And, of course, we can always talk about, producing the art and the new stuff that's coming out and some camera stuff, of course, and whatever else we happen to wander down the lane with.
You mean I can think of anything I want?
You can think about it. I don't know if I'll, follow it.
Hit you with a question here and there. All right. Quick break, folks. We'll come back and do some more here with Bob Coates from Bob Coates Photography. So stay tuned. Welcome back into the program. Again, Tom Taback here with Bob Coates from Bob Coates Photography. Artist of the Month.
Artist of the Month. Yeah, I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
I'm now represented by Gallery of Modern Masters for some of my pieces. And there's a number of pieces in there. I'm going to be expanding that for the, Artist of the Month designation. So I'll have some new work coming in pretty shortly that I'm working on right now. I'm having a lot of fun putting that together. And looking forward to First Friday, which would be September the 7th.
Okay.
Invite everybody to come by on September the 7th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. And they're going to have some hors d'oeuvre poos and some wine. And, we can chat and look at art and anybody can ask questions. And I'll even be there.
Okay. Now, the more wine they drink, does your art look better?
One could hope. I have no problem. If alcohol is what it takes, let's go.
Or does it become abstract?
They may see things. Actually, I have a lot of hidden things in my art.
Do you really?
That are very, very subtle. I mean, they're almost, if even I can't find them sometimes after I'm done.
And after you've put them in there.
Yeah. And I put them into shadow areas, and a lot of times it's Japanese characters with the title of the piece. Sometimes it's, a little message. Sometimes it's just a little shadow of something else that's, kind of ties in. And weirdly enough, and especially, because people would say, Bob, your work seems to have like an Oriental aesthetic. I kind of see a Japanese feel.
Yeah, you've told me that before. Yeah.
Well, I hear that on a regular basis, and I have a feeling that part of it is there is just that subliminal stuff inside there. And one of the things that I try and build into my artwork is depth and dimension. And in studying art in museums over the years and the masters, one of the things that I found is if you change the lighting on the image, it looks different. If you step closer.
You mean how it's illuminated?
If you have a different kind of light hitting it, or if it's an overhead light or a side light, or the time of day changes and there's more light or less light, the image looks different. If you step really close to it, it looks different. If you step back 5 feet, it looks different. If you step back 15 feet, it looks different. And that's something that I learned through going to museums and studying like Monet and Manet and Renoir and all those guys, because I was looking to see how does the art work when you put colors next to each other, and how do they render metal, and how do they move your attention around the image. And I found that it's sometimes little tiny paint strokes here and there of either highlights or shadows. You can sharpen an area more or less to kind of draw attention to an area. Of course, there's lines and all the compositional tools like Gestalt theory and all that kind of stuff that gets worked into there too.
Is this the hardest or at least one of the hardest things you've had to develop as an artist?
Yeah, I think so. It's got so much depth. It's so deep when you start studying color theory.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I understand what you're talking about, because I can look at certain art pieces and I can see depth is a perfect word. I can see a depth there that makes them almost look three-dimensional.
Exactly.
And I can look at other art pieces, and in fact, it might even be the same image, but that's been created by somebody else. And it's not. I mean, it just looks flat. And it looks good, but it doesn't have the same, it doesn't grab you the same way. I have seen, and you hear this from people who think they're going crazy, I have seen portraits where it seems like the eyes are following you.
Yes. Matter of fact, I just did a blog post about that on successful-photographer.com where I talk about that particular thing, and I was like, is there a word for it? And I kind of put it out to my people, and they came back and said, yeah, it's called the Mona Lisa effect, because obviously it happens with the Mona Lisa one.
Right.
And it has to do with the eye being pointed straight ahead from the painting.
Yeah.
And when you do that, no matter where you go, the eye follows you through the thing.
Interesting.
And
okay.
at the Phoenix Art Museum, there's a piece, it's Madame Somebody and Her Children. There's, it's like a 5 foot by 6 foot painting that's from the Renaissance period. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And when you move anywhere, all 3 sets of eyes follow you.
Interesting.
And everybody, I take people, and somebody will be standing there. I said, did you know that if you step over there, the eyes are all going to look at you? And they're like, oh, yeah, right. And then they walk over and they go, oh. And I said, if you walk over there, they're going to follow you too.
I can give you a word to describe it. It's called creepy.
But it's a beautiful thing. And there's lots of things like that can really change how something looks. And sometimes it's just a little stroke. It's a little direction if the eyes are in a certain place.
Okay, now that's the eyes on a portrait, of course, somebody's eyes. Mm-hmm. And I can understand that from what you just described. It sounds kind of simple, actually, if you just create it where the eyes are looking straight forward. Even if the eyes are not necessarily centered in the socket, because this was one of the things that I was looking at. I was like, well, this little girl's eyes are over to the left a little bit, and this one's over, but the shape of them the orb faces straight forward where the iris does. Okay. Whereas if you turned them a little bit or turned the head and then made them go to the side and gave it a different shape, they wouldn't follow you anymore. But I can see the same depth in a landscape, for instance, or inanimate objects. So it's and it's not from the illumination of the art studio. It's from something the artist did to create that depth that makes you think you can almost jump into that image.
Shadow. Yeah. Shadow and light. Okay, light illuminates and shows you that you can see something. Shadow creates the form. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times when I'm now, especially with my scenics, one of the pieces I have over there is called Day's End, and it's 179. I took 9 images and stitched them together and made a huge panoramic. I have it over there as a 70-inch image that's about 20 inches tall, and in order to get that extra depth and dimension, I actually painted in shadows and highlights and moved them deeper in so that it really exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. So it's not just and that's one of the reasons that I call myself a lens-based artist now, is because all of my source material comes in through a camera lens, but that's about as close as it gets to being photography anymore as far as my artwork goes. Yeah. Because I'm taking it to the new level and adding textures and the depth and dimension and stuff to it.
So it's kind of like taking a basic photograph, and then from an artistic standpoint, starting to paint different applications to that photograph.
Exactly. Mm. And again, all my source material comes from a lens. So the textures that I have, I photograph them, and then they become, and I use blend modes and masks and all. I have all sorts of tips and tricks. It's easy for you to say, Bob.
Tips and tricks.
No, I have different ways of doing things, a lot of them.
Well, with regard to that, how often do you end up where you're taking a photograph or something and you're thinking to yourself, this is awesome, I'm going to be able to make gold out of this, and it doesn't happen, and vice versa, you end up with a photograph where you're thinking, the photo image where you're thinking to yourself, well, we'll see what I can do, and then you end up making gold out of it.
Yes. Absolutely. It happens on a regular basis. Sometimes like you say, I think that I've really got it. Yeah. For example, there was a piece that I was trying to recreate because I didn't have enough depth of field in it. Mm-hmm. It was of a juniper bush. And the photo that I started with on the original piece was actually pretty substandard, but when I got done, it had, it's a really popular piece. I've sold it a few times, but somebody wants it bigger. And when it gets bigger. It doesn't have quite enough depth of field on the leaves and the stuff on the front.
Right.
So I was like, I need to recreate this. So I went back out and found that same juniper.
No kidding.
Yeah, because I've been hiking a whole bunch lately.
Okay.
And because I'm collecting a whole bunch of junipers for a series.
No.
And I looked and I went, that looks an awful lot like, I found it. But it was actually a better photograph and was more difficult to put back in. So I actually have to go back and create another crappy photograph to build it the way I want it to look in the final piece.
Yeah. Okay, so can people commission you then to create a piece for them? Okay.
Absolutely. So if you have a certain place that you like, or if you have, the first nail that your grandfather, drove into a thing because he was a carpenter, and here's this rusty nail, Bob, can you turn that into a piece of art for me?
Yeah.
Sure enough, we can work it out.
We're late on a break, but I got to ask you this question, and we'll just cut the next segment short. But is that maybe one of the hardest things for you to accomplish? Because now you have to not just satisfy your own final, end product wishes, but somebody else's.
Yep. Well, and the idea is, though, but I start with what their wants are.
Yeah.
What color palette do you have? Do you want it to jump off the wall, or do you want it to be a subtle piece? Do you want to have a lot of depth and dimension built into it, or do you want to, depends on, what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to play that game. And actually, it's a cool challenge for me. I mean, you know me.
Yeah.
I kind of like a challenge.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back for another segment, folks. So stay tuned. You're listening to Tech Talk. I'm here with Bob Coates from Bob Coates Photography. Welcome back into the program. Tom Taback in. Again with Bob Coates from Bob Coates Photography. A fascinating segment. We went a little long on that last segment because I got into your creativity. Now, let me ask you this, because I didn't get into this and I knew we needed to take a break. Why do you put the subliminal stuff in your work?
It just feels right.
Yeah.
There are.
Okay, so where did that start? When did it feel right?
I have always had a kin for the Oriental art and the arts that come out of the Orient. I just love that aesthetic. And some of the things that I'm working on now are some line drawings with like a kind of a watercolor feel, and a lot of different things like that. And I'm taking some of those techniques and actually burying them inside the images again. And I don't just something maybe from when I was a kid and went to the museums and just went, wow, that's so cool.
I know what it was. A Bruce Lee movie.
Yeah, doubt it. I don't think I've ever seen a Bruce Lee movie. I might have seen clips, but I've never seen a Bruce Lee movie. One thing I wanted to mention, I was in Atlanta this past beginning of the month, which is why we're doing this show now instead of a little while ago. I was judging the International Photographic Competition for Professional Photographers of America. And as part of that, I also am required to participate. And I had 2 image cases, and both of them got merits all the way through. And the image I was just talking about, Land's End, that went into the PPA loan collection.
Oh, yeah.
So that was kind of cool.
Very nice. That's kind of interesting, though. All the judges have to enter their own work?
Yes.
Put up or shut up?
But pretty much, yeah. So as a judge, you have to at least score 1 merit in I have 2 different categories that I'm authorized for or specialized for, which is the photographic open and the artist category. And so at least once every 2 years, I have to get at least 1 merit in each of those categories to keep up my judging.
Oh, okay.
So it's part of, put up or shut up, I guess, is, show that you can still, create images that will get into that category, be scored high in that category.
Well, I like that because I had, various other different, competitions, different walks of life. I've never understood it where the judges were people who really never did the work.
Right.
In other words, do as I say, don't do as I do.
Yeah. Although it can be difficult sometimes, and they try not to do this, but I happen to be on a panel where one of my images came up for loan possibility, and I was on that panel, and we have a button that we can push that says, you're DQ'd. So either if you know a maker or, obviously I know myself, so I had to go, nope, I can't vote yes or no for that. And then,
but if you were running for election, you could vote for yourself.
Yeah, you could. So anyway,
this is America,
baby. Anyway, it came up and I watched it go through, and they went, nope, no loan. And I was like, really? You guys. It's kind of funny.
Now, what makes you decide where you're going to end up with these subliminal images or parts of your artistry? Does it just come to you while you're doing it, or do you actually think in terms of, I think I'll put something right there?
No, it just kind of comes as I go along. This area here needs a little extra something, but I don't necessarily want to change the overall feel of anything. Yeah. So again, it's sometimes a small percentage, sometimes it's just a shadow of the letters. Like when I say I put the word, the text of the name of the image in Japanese, right. I will go pull down the Japanese text, and then I will massage it and make it so that basically I'm just showing the shadows of the text, then lower the opacity and kind of mix it in with some other shadows. And again, I don't know that anybody would ever actually see it, but obviously they're feeling it.
I'm belaboring this because I think it would be really fun, for the listeners to, for instance, go see your work on September 7th and look for these things. See if they can find them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, has anybody ever said to you, you know what this looks like, and they do kind of find it by accident?
There are some things that are up there a little bit more forward, and they can find them. But that's entirely up to them. And that's the idea, is that, you can have a piece in your house for 6 months and then go, oh, I never saw that before. It's different. And that's, again, that distance thing, so that I kind of, one of the expressions I came up with a while ago was art that's alive.
Yeah.
The fact that, viewing it at different distances will give you a different feel, and that kind of thing.
And you could have so much fun with the people that come to see you and meet you in your work, and by telling them that piece right there, you can tell them what's in there and drive them nuts by telling them the wrong thing. No,
you are evil. It just you have a big smile, but boy, you can be evil. And no, I'm not that kind of guy.
And then you can have mercy on them and tell them, oh yeah, it's right there. All right. So again, this is going to be September 7th?
September 7th, first Friday for Sedona. And so you can go out and hit all the art galleries, but make sure you stop by Gallery of Modern Masters. It's in Hillside on the lower level next to the James Ratliff Gallery. And we're really looking forward to having people come by and say hey.
Yeah, very cool. All right, let's talk. We got a little bit of time here left in this segment. Let's talk some camera stuff.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the Lumix gear. As you know, I'm a Panasonic representative, or ambassador, as they say, and they've come up with some just absolutely stunning stuff. And I've got this tiny little camera that has great range and just amazing detail. This is the Lumix G9, which they've actually set up as the flagship stills camera. So it does absolutely beautiful stills, and it's geared toward a stills photographer, but still takes good video. The other camera, which they've been building for their matrix for a long time, was to build a great video camera that also took good stills. So now they've kind of changed over, and there's a lot of features in here that are more toward more what I do.
Yeah.
And I was just really excited because I'm out on the trails lately. I've started hiking, 3 to 4 miles, every day around, different trails, and again, gathering source material. I'm looking for those twisted junipers and putting those together. And the fact that this is so light, I can carry multiple lenses in a little pouch on my thing, and with that and the camera and the lens that's on the camera, if I combine the weight of all of those, it's probably less than the weight of one of the lenses that I used to have on my full frame cameras.
Which is the beauty of technology and how it's advanced in the camera world these days.
Smaller, lighter, stronger, and just absolutely stunning.
Yeah. All right, let's take one more break, folks. When we come back, we'll wrap things up and make sure you get some contact information for Bob Coates from Bob Coates Photography. Welcome back, folks. As we start to wrap things up, I've been sitting here with Bob Coates from Bob Coates Photography. And Bob, a little wrap up today, and then we'll give them some contact information.
Sure. bcphotography.com is my commercial website. Successful-photographer.com is the one for photographers and people who want to see some of my weirdness and my work, and who are more interested in doing photography than hiring photography.
Yeah.
So I have a blog for that. And then just in general, if you have any questions, 300-0535. That's 300-0535. That's my direct line.
Okay, and one more time, they can actually meet you and see your work on September 7th.
At Gallery of Modern Masters, lower level at Hillside, Sedona.
All right, folks, drop by, drink some of his wine, eat some of his hors d'oeuvres, take some of his art.
You've been listening to KAZM's Tech Talk, a discussion program Wednesdays following the noon news with local experts. Tune in again next week for updated information about computers, cell phones, electronic devices, everything technical. That's why we call it Tech Talk, right here on 780 KAZM.